Local councils have been sucked in by the tentacles of global power, encouraging them to spend vast amounts of time and taxpayers' money on climate schemes, without challenging the rationale.
Local councils have taken these actions because they are part of or lobbied by a network of green organisations throughout the United Kingdom. For example, UK 100, there's also C40 Cities, and there's the Global Covenant of Mayors. And these organisations require local authorities to sign pledges that say they're going to ban cars from streets, we're going to make people vegetarian, and we're going to restrict certain forms of trade faster than is required by national government. They've been able to do this because democratic engagement at the local level is so weak. The voters' decisions are completely outweighed by the influence of the green blob, essentially.
One organisation, Climate Emergency UK, has introduced scorecards, a league table to compare the progress of councils. It brings both pressure and opportunity.
Environmentalism creates the idea that a local councillor is a planet saver. And of course, there are organisations that, like the UK 100, that are going to flatter people in that position. They're going to indulge those people and say how important they are, whereas most of the rest of the public are going to probably see them and say, what the hell are you doing?
Ben Pyle emphasises that such organisations are not grassroots initiatives.
Civil society has been bought and it's been organised around the interests of its billionaire philanthropists.
Newspapers and television also consistently push the same story.
We've been hearing about the threat of climate change for decades, but now we can't ignore it.
Here, the climate crisis is very real, and it is getting worse.
What mainstream media does in following this narrative is that they exclude vast areas of climate science. They exclude all the sceptical scientists. By the BBC, which has done it for 20 years, saying that you cannot have any other view apart from the settled narrative, is doing an enormous disservice to science.
Journalists and broadcasters are schooled in the carbon doctrine by organisations such as the Carbon Literacy Project, which claims to have trained 1,000 BBC employees. Meanwhile, Sky joined forces with the psychologists of the Behavioural Insights team to produce this initiative: How the Power of Television Can Nudge Viewers to Decarbonise Their Lifestyles. The recommendations included:
give green content more screen time, more salience in plots and scenes. Use kids' content to encourage positive environmental behaviours amongst children and their parents.
How then can we possibly expect impartiality in reporting? Rather, we're served with propaganda, statements that nobody seems willing or able to question.
It is unequivocal that human activities are responsible for climate change.
I can take current media, and almost any climate story I can write, I think, a very effective counter. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. This is endemic to a media that is ill-informed and has an agenda. The agenda is to promote alarm and induce governments to decarbonize. There's an organization called Covering Climate Now, which is a nonprofit membership organization. Their mission is to promote the narrative. They will not allow anything to be broadcast or written that is counter to the narrative.
Among the 500+ media partners on the Covering Climate Now website are Reuters, Bloomberg, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, NBC, Channel 4 News, The Guardian, The Daily Mirror and The Lancet, as well as several British universities. Funders of Covering Climate Now have included the Rockefeller Family Fund, the Rockefeller Family and Associates, and the One Earth Fund.
It's true that the mainstream media only report one side of the story and that most of them are in the pocket of the powerful people who are trying to implement these changes. I don't question that at all. But it's also true that people are listening to them less and less and reading them less and less. We see independent media people with much larger audiences than mainstream papers. And I think that phenomenon will gather pace now.
That rise in independent voices has seen institutions like the UN, the WEF, big tech companies and broadcasters like the BBC wage war on what they call mis, dis and malinformation. They don't appreciate views they can't control.
The fight for truth is on.
A partisan media, obsessed local councils, and then there are the universities, which should be the first and last bastions of objective research and open debate. But here too is a story of outside pressure.
With the drop in government funding, the shortfall has been made up from other sources, and those tend to be NGOs, private organisations. For example, the Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust. Invariably, money from private organisations will come with vested interests.
These vested interests, according to Professor Moss, drive university teaching towards business goals and ideologies at the expense of critical thinking and levels of academic achievement. One new initiative is the European Network on Climate and Health Education, led by Glasgow University. Medical students have been trained to accept that climate science is an established fact.
Increasingly, climate change is harming people's health. You could say it's the largest health emergency of our time, and I do need to be ready to help tackle this challenge.
Can the outcomes really be free of prejudice when the backers include the WHO and major pharmaceutical companies?
This new collaboration will help train the next generation of medics with the skills they need to treat the health impacts of climate change and deliver more sustainable healthcare.
That's why health leaders from across the public and private sectors are coming together to support this transformative new network.
Academics, right from the beginning now, are socialised to orientate their research towards the money. So this, I think, is quite damaging when it comes to fearlessly pursuing the truth wherever it may lead. That doesn't really happen anymore in academia. It's more about pursuing the money wherever that might lead.
It makes me feel distraught. It makes me feel that the whole purpose of university learning has been subverted.
The influence and ambition of big business, the mission creep of so-called woke thinking, the cancel culture, the suppression and smearing of those who dare to question. Shockingly, the conditioning starts in the youngest of minds.
Give me just one generation of youth, and I'll transform the whole world. Vladimir Lenin.